Welcome to the Visionary Voice. The Visionary Voice is dedicated and devoted to female visionary leaders, those who have come before us and those who are alive today, and to you, the woman who wants to lead with personal power and liberate the visionary leader within. I'm Lori DeGardi, and today I welcome Bryna Hanes to the Visionary Voice. Welcome, Bryna.
I'm so excited to be here, Lori. Thank you.
You're welcome. We're going to have a lot of fun. That's a prerequisite for anything that I do.
As it should be.
Yeah. Bryna Hanes is an inspirational speaker, philosopher, waymaker, coach, and award-winning best-selling author. She is the creator of Choose Your Evolution. She helps conscious entrepreneurs, change makers, leaders, and influencers navigate growth and change so they can step into their biggest vision in the most intentional way possible. That sounds like a visionary leader to me.
It is the most fun job I could ever imagine having.
Something came to me recently. I was working so hard, and last November, it was like, oh my gosh, why am I doing X, Y, and Z? Because if it's not fun, I'm not doing it anymore. You know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I had a similar situation about a year and a half ago, and it was actually what brought me forward into this work. I feel like we all have this drive to find purpose, to deliver value, to have meaning in the world. But if we're not finding the joy in it, it just will suck us dry. And that's where I was at that point. And it was really interesting because I had to have this complete teenage breakdown and crying on the phone with my friend in London and be like, what am I going to do? And really what it came down to was, what if we only did what made us happy? Oh my God, it's a revolutionary thought. What if we only did what made us happy? And what I've noticed since then is where we find our true purpose, where we find our true visionary selves, is at that intersection of joy and purpose, that intersection of joy and our talents. But it's when we bring in the joy piece that we really figure out what it is that we're supposed to be doing, how we're supposed to be leading. So yeah, I feel like so many of us have gotten to that point and needed to make a shift, sometimes a radical one, in order to really align with what are we doing here?
If it's not bringing you joy, for me, it's not worth doing it. One of my new mottos, if it ain't fun, I ain't doing it. And the thing is, when you're a visionary leader, just about everything you do has value or has purpose. We're not superficial people. Follow your joy or follow your bliss, and life will open up in a juicy way.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I have historically been so good at, and I know that so many of us are great at this, especially those of us who have a big vision or are a little, maybe a bit afraid of it, is that I am a genius at creating busy work for myself. An absolute genius. I can find things to do that seem like they are so deserving of my attention. And I take myself out of the visionary space when I do that.
Yes.
So I love that you said that. When we are leaders, all the things that we do have value, and we have to be so selective in how we spend our energy so we can stay in that place of joy. Little things that I would put my energy and attention onto that were just a way for me to feel like I was too busy to follow the big dream. Not doing it anymore.
That's really important. So that needs to be repeated, because I know so many women who keep busy with things or adding credentials to their list of credentials that they already have. And for me, when I see that it's busy work, because some of it can be helpful, and well, it's all helpful. We can make everything helpful, but it also keeps us from jumping right into that vision. And as a visionary, our visions are usually huge, and they can be scary to bring those visions to earth. What is your vision for the world?
I was reminiscing with a friend of mine who I've known since I was about 9 years old. And we were recalling a conversation we had probably sometime near the end of high school, when she was like, what would your ideal job be? And I was like, I could just tell people what to do all day. That would be my best job ever. So obviously, I was not in the right place to be coaching or leading anybody at that point. But remembering that really sparked something in me, is that I'm an ideas girl. And I know that real change starts with big ideas. And real change starts not only with big ideas, but with awareness of who we are, of what we bring to the world, and how we can put those ideas in motion. So my vision for the world is really about up-leveling consciousness. If everybody in the world, if all of our leaders, all of the people who are running our government, all of the people who are taking on any role whatsoever, service and education and all of this, if all of us were willing to take just a few steps forward in consciousness, the entire world would change. Conflict would dissolve. It would be settled. It would be, we'd be dealing with conflict with awareness. And to me, consciousness is just the knowing, the awareness that we are not our thoughts. We are the thinker of our thoughts. We are not our actions. We are not our emotions. We are the doer and the feeler of those actions and emotions. And most people don't have the clarity around that to make good observations and decisions about their reality. And so my big vision is to work with other leaders, to work with especially female leaders, but other leaders, to help them have those steps forward in consciousness. Because while we're pretty sure trickle-down economics doesn't work, trickle-down consciousness actually does. When the people who are making the big decisions, when the people who are leading are showing up in a more conscious, more self-aware, more authentic and deliberate way in all of their interactions, that makes a difference across a wide spectrum of people and experience. That's my vision: change the world through up-leveling consciousness.
Right. A conscious world would be such a different world. And we're in the work of making that happen, because it's so totally possible.
It's never been more possible, and change has never been happening more rapidly. And the really cool thing is that science is now starting to validate what those of us who are spiritual practitioners have known forever and ever. Things like the law of attraction, things like manifestation. Quantum science is validating these things. Our reality is what it is because we observe it that way. And so having these things all sort of converge, the science and the spirituality and the technology, we finally have the tools we need to create a more conscious world. It's just about increasing our general societal and personal awareness of what's possible for us. Because there is no up-leveling when you feel trapped. There is no up-leveling when you're keeping yourself so busy that you can't even stop to think about why you're doing what you're doing. And when we put the brakes on for just a moment, you have these moments of clarity. And the more clarity we have, the more we can be in ourselves, with ourselves, and have the tools to actually access that clarity. We make quantum leaps. We create massive change in a matter of moments. And that's possible for everyone, no matter what their situation.
Yes, I get excited when science supports what I've known for so long. I mean, I always say I'm my biggest science experiment. So if it's true for me, it's true for me. But I do love the support from even mainstream, and even with meditation and mindfulness. There's so much science now behind that as well. And energy medicine, what was once esoteric or just available along the mystics path, is now become more mainstream. It just makes that conscious expansion more accessible to other people.
Because we are consciously evolving, or we are unconsciously evolving. So when we are mindful, when we access a level of consciousness that allows us to observe ourselves, which is really all that any spiritual practice is all about, observe who you really are as opposed to who you think you are, and then correct the disparities between the two, which is the work of lifetimes. When we choose that, we catapult ourselves in a direction of our choosing. We push ourselves toward our dream. It's like we're standing in the middle of the forest and we say, man, I'm headed north. That's where I'm going. When we are not operating from a conscious space, our evolution is determined by what is happening in the now, what's in our reality, and what's in our past, and what we are afraid of in our future. And it's like being in that forest and, oh my God, there's a bear. I'm just going to run. I don't know where I'm running. And I end up lost. And then I end up swirling around the same patch of forest over and over because I'm being driven by the external elements.
Mm-hmm.
And so most of us, before we begin a conscious journey, are in that reactive space. We are not really sure where we're going because we're not really sure where we are. And so just gaining that awareness, wow, this is who I'm being in this moment. This is really working for me. Or maybe I should make a little shift there. Maybe that isn't helping me have my biggest dream. Those little moments of awareness turn into up-level consciousness. They turn into being able to see the direction. And then eventually they turn into being able to live in the dream, to come out of the swirl, out of the mist, and actually climb that mountain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of intention in what you're talking about. That intention is so important. Is that conscious choice you're talking about in leading with personal power? And when you're not leading with personal power, when you're making unconscious evolution, which can be full of suffering. But when you're leading with personal power, that's the juicy sweet spot in life, when you're really intentional and conscious. And what does it look like in your life, Bryna, to lead with personal power?
It looks like everything that I have wanted for my entire life, to feel like I have some control over what is manifesting in my reality, to feel like I have the power to choose my responses as opposed to merely react in the way that I had been conditioned to react. It's being less triggered by stupid stuff that doesn't really matter. It's being more intentional in how I craft my day and how I present my energy. It's being in a state of inner calm. Those are just a few of the things, right? It's pursuing my big dreams. It's being in a space where I literally feel like it's not why can't I have that? It's why can't I have that? It's the difference between victimhood and being a true leader and being out in front of my life. Personal power to me is choice. Mm-hmm. I can choose to react in a certain way when something happens, or I can choose to resort to my default, which probably doesn't serve me. I can choose to take action that will support my dream, or I can let myself be distracted. And for me, being in my power is really about owning my voice. I was one of those kids that was so loud and so opinionated, and I always knew everything about everything, probably because I spent most of my childhood reading in the library. I mean, I researched everything from like sharks and snakes to narcotics. I mean, I wanted to know everything about everything.
You probably started at a young age, didn't you?
Oh my gosh, yeah. No, I remember being 5 or 6 years old and like surrounded by piles of books about sharks because I really wanted to know everything there was to know about sharks. And anything that's interested me, I've been a natural researcher. I was not a normal kid, let's put it that way. But it became very clear to me early on that me knowing things that maybe I wasn't supposed to know, or knowing more than my peers about certain things, or being very opinionated was not well received. And I think that's pretty normal for a kid who's loud and knows lots of stuff. But I really took that personally because I really wanted to be loved. And I wanted to be loved in a way that felt like it would uplift my world. And that's something we all want as well. And I feel like somewhere, I don't know, I mean, I think this happens to us somewhere between like 7 and 11 years old. It's like middle school age, right? When it all kind of like all the social stuff really comes to bear and all the hormones come to bear. And some of us, and this is me, I just shrank. And I started hiding the things that made me me. I started hiding my music and not sharing it with anybody because, people didn't want to hear me. And, I started not expressing my feelings and opinions because people didn't want to hear it. It was very much a reaction and not a response. It was a reaction to this outside world. And I think so many of us who have these big dreams and big personalities, we go through that because when we shine, it makes other people uncomfortable. And especially as a kid, how do you do other than internalize that? It's been a journey of really finding where I want to use my voice, where I want to bring my big energy, where I want to really share my opinions, and doing it in a way that actually is helpful. Because when you're in that much reaction, you also tend to be in a lot of judgment. And so my comment about, just telling people what to do all day, right, when I was 16 or 17 years old, that came from a real place of judgment. I felt really judged, but inside I knew that I had all of this knowledge and information. So I translated that, my young self, to like, well, it's like, what am I doing here on earth with all these people who just don't even know what's going on, And so I was in so much judgment of everyone else, of myself. It was awful. It felt so heavy. And my response to it was just to hide more and hide more and hide more. And so coming into our voice is really, it's not about just like vomiting our opinions on everyone or making sure that we're louder than the other person. That's not leadership. That's not personal power. When we are in our power and using our voice, we are sharing from the deepest part of ourselves the knowledge and experience that is going to uplift the world. We all have a unique way of doing that. If you feel called to say it, there's a reason. If you feel called to put it out there, there is a reason, but only you can own that. And so when you're in your power, you're owning your value.
Wow, you've given me so much here, and you've gone into the next question as well, but I want to go back to leading with personal power for you. What I heard, and I keep hearing this, and I see the sign behind you, she designed a life she loved. And that life that she loves is one of conscious choice, it's focus, it's awareness, it's response, and it's a lot more than that. When weren't you leading with personal power, and what did that look like
in my 20s? I was literally waiting for the universe to step up and show me that I was meant for more. And at the time, I was in a very unhealthy relationship with a man who was an alcoholic and had other addiction and trauma issues, deep, deep trauma. And when you're in a situation like that, where, emotional abuse is happening and you're being dragged into someone else's whirlwind, it's really hard to focus on yourself and your needs and what you want. And it's very tempting to just be in this mode every day of reaction. Mm-hmm. And in my late 20s, I started practicing yoga and I started deepening my spiritual studies. I'd always been sort of dabbling in, philosophy and spirituality, but I really started deepening that in my late 20s. And I found myself literally waiting for someone or something to pop in, and something would happen and it would show me that it was okay that I wanted more, that it was okay that I wanted to leave this relationship, to make a change, to start a new life. And it didn't come. I had to choose it. And I feel like that waiting is something that so many of us do. Well, when this happens, I'll be ready and I'll step into my power. Or, when my kids are grown up, or when this relationship finally, blows up or peters out or whatever it is. And after all those years of waiting for someone or something to acknowledge my greatness so that I could actually own it, no, never going to happen. I had to make the choice myself. Mm. And when I did leave that relationship, I started, again, going even deeper into my spiritual studies. I started finally doing all the work on myself and this feeling of smallness that had been with me for so long. unraveling this whole concept of seeing myself as not having a voice and not mattering. And it was years of deep work. And along the way, I met my husband, Matthew, and today we have two beautiful children, 4 and 22 months. And I feel like I've finally got that support system that I was craving. But it all started with my choice. And along the way, there have been multiple moments of choice, including when I chose to start the Choose Your Evolution project. It would be so easy for me to stay in my previous career path. I had a thriving business working with amazing women on amazing books. I mean, I can't even tell you some of the projects that I've worked on that have brought so much light to the world. It would be easy for me to choose that. But what I've been realizing, and again, it all comes down to that moment of choice, is that I am just not a backstage kind of person. And I never have been. I've just been pretending to be, because it was very comfortable to be smaller, to be quiet, to be in a support role. And I brought a lot of value to that. And the feedback I was getting was telling me that that was valuable. And I'm so glad that I did it, because the relationships that I formed and the women that I got to connect with are amazing. And they'll be lifetime friendships and relationships. But I had to make a choice to step outside my comfort zone yet again, to step into what I was really called to do, to really bring my power, which is this clarity that I've been bringing to my authors and to people that I've worked with over the years. But no, I was waiting and waiting and waiting for that cosmic 2x4. And the day I realized it wasn't going to come, it was crushing, because I saw other people have these moments of enlightenment, these moments of connection, and they would just turn on a dime.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't I get that?
Well, do you remember what that day was? There a specific day when you thought, oh, it's not coming?
There were many days, and some of them felt really disempowering, actually, because there's this feeling sometimes that we have that we want the world to validate our worth. And we wait for those comments from other people. We wait for those accolades. We wait for those degrees. We wait for all of that. And what we're really waiting for is proof that we are worth something, proof that our ideas are valid, proof that we have something to say. But all of the proof in the world won't be received if you're not ready and willing to receive it. To me, when we step into our personal power, we trust our intuitive desire to expand. And when we are in that space, when we know that the opportunities that are coming to us are coming because we are worthy of them, that we don't have to wait for permission anymore, that we don't have to wait for other people to see our greatness before we own it.
A coach that I worked with many years ago used to tell me, Lori, when you give yourself what you're waiting for from everybody else, you won't need it from them, but then you start getting it from everybody. So it's true for so many women. It's true for men as well. That what you want from another person, you need to give to yourself. And be that person that acknowledges your worth and the gifts that you have and the power that you have and the life that you're creating. And yeah, because if you're going to wait for it from somebody else, you'll be waiting until you're 6 feet under. So that is common for most people, to be looking for somebody to say, oh, I see you. I see you. You have to see yourself. Don't wait for that acknowledgement. Give it to yourself. Now, giving it to yourself can be very challenging to get past all of the things that say it's not true. And that's where the work you do with women and the work that I do with women and help you acknowledge that. Because once you do that, that's when you're really choosing your evolution. You're choosing your personal power. You're choosing a life that you'll love, that's fulfilling and fun.
When we make choices, what we're really choosing is a set of possibilities. Mm-hmm. And so the way that I teach this is that we are actually containers for all the possibilities in the universe. The universe exists outside of us, but it also exists in its full, dynamic, incredible manifestation. It exists inside of us as well. We are containers. And so the beliefs that we have, the actions that we choose, the thoughts, the emotions that we bring to bear every day, they are our way of narrowing the sets of possibilities that are actually available to us. So if we are not ready for a particular set of possibilities, we're not going to receive them. If we're not being in a way that allows for a set of possibilities, we will not receive that. And so when you think about what you actually want, if you want more joy in your life, how are you going to be from moment to moment in a way that invites joy? I can say that I want to be more joyful, but if every single time something ticks me off, I respond in a way that is absent of joy, or I don't see the joy around me, if I'm not being a person who embraces joy, I'm not going to be able to find joy. This possibility of joy is closed to me. And so when we look at conscious choice, it's really all about opening a particular door of possibility and allowing what's out there already and what's within us already to just come in. I think it's really important to remember that where we are now, whatever's going on, is not all that's available to us. Every time we make a new choice, every time we embrace a slightly, and I mean slightly different way of being in our worlds, in our lives, in our relationships, we invite a new set of possibilities out of the infinite set of possibilities that is already within and around us. We are so tempted to look at our lives right now and say, well, I am this and I am that. And, I'm an introvert and I'm a this and I'm a that. And this is the reality. It's really hard to make money. It's really hard to have good relationships. Like whatever our definitions are, those are literally closing doors on possibilities for us. So it's part of, I think, coming back to the personal power piece is realizing that who you're being from moment to moment is not actually who you are. Who you are is a container for universal possibility. Who you're being is a choice. If I say that I want to be a visionary leader, if I want to have worldwide influence, but I'm showing up every day as someone who's afraid to ruffle feathers, as someone who's afraid to speak her mind, the possibilities that I desire are not yet open to me. I have to show up in my life as the person who can have what I want. And when we can do that consistently and with intention and with a forward-looking alignment, then we become the visionary leaders in our own reality.
That last thing you said is so key, that forward-looking alignment. Be here now and keep your eye on the vision. And what popped out to me is if you want to live a life of joy, then you have to be open to it. So there may be somebody watching this and saying, well, I'm depressed, or I'm sad, or this or that. How can I be open to joy? I want to say that don't judge where you are right now, but be that forward looker like you're speaking about, Bryna, and get the support you need to see yourself and not judge yourself with that sadness or depression or whatever it is, so that you are open to seeing what you really want, that joy or more abundance in your life. You have experiences and expertise that you use to help people be open to joy or whatever it is that they really want for their lives, even though they feel like they're not being that. Like, how can I be that? I hear that from a lot of people, right? They want better relationships. They want more choice in their life, but their husband tells them what to do, or depression runs in my family. And I hear all of these things that they don't want, and they feel that, you mentioned this earlier, being a victim of their life. So just briefly mention a few of the processes that you share with the women you work with to help them not only see forward, but be in that energy of that quality that they want in their life.
Absolutely. So to me, anytime we run up against a block in our lives, it's because there's a dissonance between who we know ourselves to be, the expansive, some people would say divine being that we know ourselves to be, and who we think we are. And so we want joy. We know that joy is possible. But every time we think about ourselves, we identify as a person who doesn't know joy. When we want to be a person who is courageous, but every time we think about ourselves, we remind ourselves that I have anxiety, I'm afraid, I get paralyzed by decision making, right? These things may be true and they may be happening, and there are support systems out there that can help people navigate that. But what we put our focus on expands. And for most people, what's getting in the way is not actually who they are, it's the way they are defining themselves to themselves. And so a really good example of how this works is when I was in my late 20s and I was going through this, this process of spiritual discovery, I had been smoking a pack and a half a day since I was 13 years old. I was in the cycle of self-destruction, and I really wanted to quit because I was starting to practice yoga, and I was really getting into organic foods and nutrition, and really looking at how a healthy body supports a healthy mind, because I was also struggling, again, family lineage of depression, right? Just like you mentioned, depression runs in my family. I noticed that I have this tendency. I want to try to do something about that. So quitting smoking was a huge step. I tried several times. I was not successful. And then I woke up early one morning and I just said to myself, I'm not a smoker. I'm not a smoker. And every single time during the day that I wanted a cigarette, I would remind myself, but Bryna, you're not a smoker. You're not a smoker. Not anymore. You're not a smoker. I wasn't a person who was a smoker who was trying to quit smoking. I wasn't an ex-smoker or former smoker. I would just say to myself, you are not a smoker. 3 days later, my cravings were gone and I never had another cigarette again. I was a chain smoker. This was not like, I'm going to have a drink with friends and have the occasional cigarette. This is a pack and a half to 2 packs a day consistently for 14 years. And were there physical cravings? Yes. But it was the mental identification of myself as an addict, as a smoker, that needed to change before I could change that. Now, obviously, that's a very sort of physical-based example. But this is true for so many of the things that we experience ourselves as. How many people have ever said, I'm an introvert, therefore I can't speak in public? How many people have ever said, I have anxiety, so I can't take this job that I really want that requires me to travel on planes, right? Anything about how you see yourself can be expanded, doors can be opened, things can be shifted simply by placing your focus in a different place. And that's not to say that there aren't, medical things that happen, that there aren't psychological things that happen that need intervention, support, and all of that. But again, it's about where you put your focus, because that will always expand. And what you allow to be without spending too much energy on will eventually relax.
Words are powerful. If we're writing them, thinking them, speaking them, singing them, reading them, words are really powerful. And you used your words and story to redefine your life. You're not a smoker. I've not heard you say you're an addict even. You don't use those words. No. And so many women beat themselves up. I'm an idiot, or I screwed up again. And it's like, no, you didn't screw up. No, you're not an idiot. But enough times, you believe the stories that we tell ourselves, and we are not the story. We are the story creators. We make up our stories. Moving into that quality of being that you want, shifting into that, is in part having the awareness to choose a different story and using different words. And that is powerful. And by the way, there's science behind that as well.
Exactly. So when I work with people, I entrepreneurial women are my sweet spot. And the reason for that is that who we are is expressly manifested in our businesses. If we are not seeing ourselves as visionary leaders, our businesses will show it. And so I love working with women entrepreneurs because the results are not only so immediate and tangible, but they understand the value of this kind of work, of this self-expansion, self-development work. So yes, I have neurohacking tools that I use with people. I love talking about the science behind this. I love explaining these types of things in terms of quantum physics. How does our reality, our scientific reality that's now being proven, actually underpin and support the type of work we're doing in belief change and behavior change? Mm-hmm. When I work with people, the first thing that we talk about is, what do you actually want? Not what do you think you can have, not what do you think is possible for you right now if I factor in the husband and the kids and all the ifs and ands and buts. No, what do you actually want? And when you give your brain an endpoint to focus on, your brain will shift from telling you all the reasons why you can't have it because it's trying to keep you in your comfort zone and in your safety. When you make something non-negotiable, this is what I want. And you just start asking, how is it possible for me to have this? Your brain will go to work solving that problem for you. And you will see new opportunities and pathways, doorways opening that were not even in your consciousness before. I'm not working with people in a psychotherapy type of way. That's not my expertise. That's not how I work. What I love to do is help people see possibilities. Yes. All the tools and foci and exercises that we do in order to bring that to bear, we then start to see solutions. What kind of support do I need to make this change? What kind of support do I need to keep this door of possibility open for me? Mm-hmm.
I love what you say, that to attract or have or create what it is that you want, that future looking thing, that you change the container as a container of possibilities. And through your work, then the women get to see opportunities and ideas and concepts and steps that weren't available to them because they were living in a different, more closed way. So you help liberate the visionary within the women is what I'm hearing that you work with. When you're living in that sweet spot of life, you're consciously choosing to be there. And every cell in your body, every energy aspect of you is moving into yes, more and more of that. And it affects everybody. It affects everybody. So either we consciously work with people to also liberate their visionary within, or we're doing it simply by showing up to be with somebody who is self-illuminated or self-realized or enlightened or just living a juicy life is very inspiring. And it touches upon the fire within, and all of a sudden we're self-motivated for at least a little while. But I definitely recommend people to have a support system that actually supports you and supports that life that you want to create, that you love. Now, it's so wonderful to be with inspiring women, because though I acknowledge myself nowadays, when I speak to people and women like you, Bryna, I see me in you. And, you know, you're beaming me back to me. In our early years, when we were waiting for someone to see us, we weren't really speaking to people who are beaming our truth and all of that juiciness back to us. If you were to take all of the aspects that you've shared with us today about who you are from the time when you were little and wanted to know everything about everything, to helping other people and other women give voice to their truth, to all of your conscious choice and awareness and just everything you shared, if you were to put that in a big funnel, and what comes out of that funnel is that unique something more that is uniquely you.
For me, I know that one of my biggest gifts is the ability to help people gain clarity. So a friend of mine described this as, if you are flying around in a plane over this gigantic ocean of your big dream, you can see it, but you don't have any way to get down into it. The work that I do paves you a landing strip. And I loved that description, and I've been using it ever since. And sometimes, honestly, we get the clearest view of ourselves when it's reflected back to us from other people, like you just said. Mm-hmm. And what I consider my job is just to help people open their eyes to what already is, to see clearly, as opposed to having on the multiple layers of filters that we all assume through our ingrained beliefs and conditioning. I'm like lens cleaner.
You're a lens cleaner.
Glasses, that scrubby cloth that we clean our glasses with. Because so much of the work I do is about stripping away what's hiding who we really are. And when we can be, like you said, in the presence of someone who really is authentic, who really is beaming from the inside out, we get to see ourselves in a new way. And so now that this is the work that I'm doing and I'm stepping out into the world in this way, it's my job to walk my talk in that. I have to be clarity. I have to be authenticity. I have to be loving and embracing and demonstrating possibility. Otherwise, I'm not doing my work.
In order to liberate the visionary within, to really have her show up and give voice and to create that vision that is like way too big, is heavenly, high, lofty, all that, we can get scared because how the heck do you do that? How do you bring that lofty vision to earth? And you say your unique essence is you help people bring it to earth. You help them see that landing strip, something I struggled with for many years. How do you bring that lofty vision to life and make it a reality? Because if you don't, then all of a sudden you're not good enough, or you can't possibly do that, or you're airy-fairy, or blah, 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 blah. So this unique essence of yours to see and bring life to these possibilities by having the clarity and that landing strip, which I also love that metaphor, is what women who haven't liberated their visionary, they need that. They need someone to help them see how to bring that and land it. Because, where were you when I needed you, all those years ago? Because that was one of my biggest issues. So having support in your life to help you do that, which is what you offer, is so important. So for the woman who is watching this interview, the 3 qualities that you would recommend to her to help liberate the visionary within, what are those 3 qualities that you would offer?
Oh my, yeah. Well, I would say the first element that's so key is learning to trust yourself. And if you've been in life situations or your reality has conspired to prove to you in some way that you can't trust yourself, that you can't trust your decision making, that's the first thing that needs to heal. And you can do this in tiny ways. This is also part of the work that I do. Little exercises to show that you can, in fact, trust yourself. Number 2 is about joy and about finding what is it that actually lights you up. If you don't know that, however lofty your goals, they're not going to feel attainable. And if you even manage to create them, they're not going to fulfill you the way that you thought that they would. You have to bring in that joy piece. Decide that is a valid goal in and of itself, to be joyful. And when you find joy in your purpose, then it's like the sky's the limit. The third quality that I think women really need to bring forth, and again, this is possible for all of us, it's within all of us, is connection. And we cannot do this work by ourselves. The reason that our subconscious is subconscious is because we're not conscious of it. And so the only way for us to get clarity around the patterns that are subliminal, that are so ingrained that we don't even notice them, is to have someone reflect them to us and bring them into our conscious awareness. And when we do this in a space of authentic connection, when we do this in a way that allows us to feel seen and heard and loved, and allow us to see ourselves as containers for possibility. When we find that connection with whomever it's with, that will catalyze us into our greatness. We cannot do this work in a vacuum. Mm-mm. And being a real introvert and kind of a loner for most of my life, I tried like hell to do this work in the vacuum. Was not going to happen. I needed a circle of women who believed in me and supported me and were willing to reflect my greatness back to me. And when I could see myself through their eyes, when I could connect with them and know that we, at an energy level, we were one and the same, that I was not different or less than them or separate from them, it made all the difference in the world. And so I love to, in addition to the one-on-one work I do with people, I love to facilitate that kind of connection at events. Live events are the best for this because you're in a dedicated space, but in any way possible, because without that, change just does not happen at the same rate, with the same depth, and with the same level of joy.
Mm. All right. So the first one is trust yourself, self-trust. That is vital. It's key. Without it, you don't have a whole heck of a lot of the other ones you're talking about or anything else that we've spoken about today. So self-trust is one. Finding your joy or living your joy, birthing your joy, 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 saying yes to joy is number two. And the third one is connection. And you're talking about being connected to others, which is so important because what we can do together is much grander, bigger, more beautiful, more illuminating than what we can accomplish alone in the context of what we're talking about, right? And I also heard you speak about connecting with those others so you can connect and learn what you don't know, right? You need other people, or you need that connection within to see what you don't know, that you didn't even know you didn't know, that kind of thing. So those are really important for any woman who wants to liberate their visionary within. I do that. I want to know about your book.
It's a how-to about how to write an inspirational book. It's called The Art of Inspiration. It won multiple awards, and it was published in 2016. And it's really interesting because the process that I taught my authors, the process that I taught in that book is a process of clarity. And in some ways, it directly translates to the work I'm doing now. This is what's so magical about our universe. Even when we think we're doing something completely different, we're not actually. We're just...
No, it's all, it's all there.
Absolutely. And I do have a book in the works called Quantum Evolution, and that will be out sometime in 2020. I don't have an exact date yet. So,
okay.
So that is coming as well, and that'll be speaking more directly to the work that I'm doing now.
Tell us how we can reach you, find out more about you, your website, social media, all of that, email, telephone, whatever you want to give us.
Absolutely. So you can find me at brynahanes.com. And you can, if you would like to reach out, you can just email me right through the website. You can find me on social media. I'm on Facebook. Business page is Bryna Hanes - Choose Your Evolution. And you can find me on Instagram at Bryna Hanes. So
okay.
To connect with me on any or all of those platforms. I love to hear from people. So if you have any question, you can drop me a direct message on Instagram or Facebook. You can send me an email. I always respond. I love to hear from people about just what questions and expansions listening to interviews like these have brought. So
okay. Yeah. See what inspiration you've brought to women's visions. I'm curious about that. You've helped me feed my vision. I've come up with a new big one that was not even, well, I guess it was in my consciousness my whole life, but it's only shown up like in the last month. And I'm thinking, wow, really? Well, really? So
fabulous.
Yeah. So hanging out with you has helped feed that. Is there anything you're looking forward to this year, or an event that you're doing, or anything else you'd like to share?
Absolutely. So on May 8th through 10th, 2019, I am throwing my first big 3-day event here in Providence, Rhode Island. It's called Evolution 2019. And at that event, we'll be doing a lot of the work that you and I talked about today. We'll be looking at, what do I actually want? How is my current definition of myself and my reality getting in the way of that? And then what can I actually do about it? So the tagline for the event is "Come with a dream, leave with a plan."
Oh, I love that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so again, that's May 8th through 10th. And I will be doing multiple events over the next year. I'm looking at booking some retreats. There will be an Evolution 2020, as well as other events possibly happening in the fall. Right now, I'm working with my friend Patsy Culp from Celebrate, who is the most awesome event manager. And we're finalizing some of that stuff as well. And live events to me are just the way to go, because it takes you out of your current reality and all of its distractions and plunks you into a cauldron of transformation. So other than that, I am launching a couple of programs that I will use to work with women both virtually and in person. One of them is my Masters of Creation program, which is it'll be set up as a women's wisdom circle, not a standard masterminded coaching program, and we'll be working together virtually multiple times a month to keep that energy of transformation moving. So, because it's so important to me that people understand that they already have the power to become the leaders that they know themselves to be.
I agree with you. Live events are, it's a concentrated container, using your word, of possibility that really does set you on fire and toward that, creating that dream that you come with, and then creating that plan that you talked about. The live events that I've been to have always changed my life immediately. And plus, it's a great, usually safe place to really connect with people. So you're engaging one of those three qualities that you spoke about, which is connection.
All of my events too are based on totally cooperative models. It's very important to me not to establish any sense of competition. I bring in amazing speakers and amazing sponsors, and everything is done in this spirit of collaboration, which just makes it A, way more fun, but B, it contributes to that energy in the event and in the collective space. So
Yes, that sounds so exciting. I look forward to learning more about that.
thank
And
you.
yeah, all right. So please reach out to Bryna with any questions at all. If what she says resonates, if you need that support and connection, if you need to learn to trust yourself, if you need help following your joy, she's a wonderful visionary leader to reach out to. And I can tell you from experience, just getting an email for her feels good. And of course, please schedule private time with me if you also would like to lead with personal power and give your voice and your purpose and your life the acknowledgement that you've been waiting for. It's time to lead with personal power, because if you're not leading with personal power, you're following an unfulfilling status quo, and that doesn't feel good. So,
Not fun.
oh my
Not
gosh, no
fun
way.
at all. No, don't go there. No.
Yeah. Exactly. Reach out to me on leadwithpersonalpower.com or Lori at leadwithpersonalpower.com. We'd love to hear from you. And that's it for today on The Visionary Voice. Bryna, thank you so much for spending your life today with me.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. And thanks to everyone who's watched. And I hope that, that this conversation has really sparked something magnificent for you as well.
Okay, bye for now.
Bye.